Joining us now is businessman and philanthropist Tom Steyer, who was on that debate stage earlier tonight. Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We're calling this tonight the Thunderdome, so you have agreed to take questions from everybody over here.
Nobody comes out the same way.
Is that good, Rom?
It could be.
Tom, I'd like to start because I noticed you leaned into race a lot tonight. You spoke a lot about South Carolina, and a lot of people know South Carolina as a firewall, if you will, for former Vice President Joe Biden, and you were aggressive after him. Do you think you can make a play in South Carolina?
Look, right now, I'm doing pretty well with black people in South Carolina. I think I'm getting something like a quarter of the black vote. I've spent a lot of time there. My family spent a lot of time there. We have a lot of people on the ground. And I speak straightforwardly about race. My attitude is there is no policy area in the United States of America that does not have a substantial, important, and often neglected subtext of race. And, you know, the example I always use is I'm a big climate bug, but I go at climate from the standpoint of environmental justice, the communities, overwhelmingly black and brown, where it's unsafe to breathe because you'll get asthma, and you can't drink the water that comes out of the tap because you'll get sick. And if we start in those communities and solve the problems of clean air and clean water for them with leadership from those communities, we'll get climate just fine.
Yvette, we were talking about this earlier tonight, right after the debate. What would you want to ask Tom?
A couple things. I mean, you had some great moments. You were a unifier at times, stepping back, saying, "Hey, I agree with you guys, but we've got to figure this out because we got to beat Donald Trump." The moment with Biden was a big moment. You literally called him on the carpet about a very clear issue. Can you talk more about that and what that felt like in that moment?
One of his big supporters in South Carolina, Dick Harpootlian, made a racist comment about someone associated with our campaign. And the Legislative Black Caucus came out and supported Jerry Govan and our campaign and asked him to disavow the remarks and the person. And all I was saying was, look, Mr. Vice President, please do the right thing and stand with us in the Legislative Black Caucus. This is a straightforward question. Please do the right thing.
And to be fair, the Vice President did say that person he believes is going to apologize for whatever happened. He did say that on the stage at that point. I just want to be clear because Vice President Biden's not here to sort of
look. I didn't understand exactly what happened in all fairness. I still believe that Joe Biden will do the right thing. I'm hoping that he will do the right thing. But I think it's important when you see racism to stand up against it on the biggest stage you can find. And this is not the first time I've seen it. And so there was no way I was going to let racism pass and just think, okay, you know, it's impolite to bring it up. If we let the racists win, if we don't stand up to them, they win. So we got to say it every time.
Amen. I agree. You made the case about reparations, and since Marianne Williamson has left the debate stage, we really haven't had many people making such a clear statement about reparations. Can you talk about that, and then I'll relinquish the microphone.
Look, I think one of the things that people feel is that we can't deal explicitly with race, that race is something that is somehow too awkward and painful to discuss, and that everything's fair now, so let the competition ensue. That's the Republican point of view. Look, we've had explicitly racist policies in this country for 400 years. I mean, my wife and I started a bank to try and undo the discrepancies and racism in the financial system to support businesses owned by women, black people, and Latinos because they were so discriminated against in the financial world, and it continues. So the idea that we can talk about equality in America without talking about race is nonsense. And I think that every time people try and sweep it under the rug, they're doing a disservice to the country. We need to talk about it openly. I keep saying, we need to tell the narrative truthfully, and then we need to repair the damage, and that's the only way we move forward as the country we want to be and the country we claim to be, which is the center of freedom, justice, and equality. Okay, let's do it.
Rom?
Tom, I mean, you have talked passionately about climate change and very passionately about race. Did your investments, when you were in the private sector, did your investments in the companies you invest in reflect those same values, both on the issue of race and on climate change?
I would say this. We started, and I'm answering you. Yeah. We started investing in everything, Rom, because I believe basically that in America, if something was wrong, the government fixed it. And a couple of times I made mistakes, including in fossil fuels. People keep bringing up that I invested in fossil fuels, which we did. Not exclusively, not as high as the percentage in the economy, but we did. And then I realized, oh my God, no one got on a school bus and went to school to try and create global warming, but it turns out there's an unintended consequence. So I divested from fossil fuels. I walked away from my business because I said, look, I want to make sure that, in fact, all the things that I believe in are true. And I made those decisions long before I was running for office on a moral basis. Look, I divested from fossil fuels. I figured this out 12, 14 years ago. I'm asking Americans to do exactly what I did then, which is this. No one, bought a car so they could heat up the planet and make it unlivable. But we have to understand we have to change. We have to move to clean energy. And that's exactly what I did.
Is that also true on race? You're talking about climate change all here. I asked about both topics.
I think I made one decision that I thought was a mistake on, which had to do with at the very beginning of the private prisons, someone tried to convince me that they would be more effective and deliver better service for lower cost. I owned it for a tiny period of time. I thought, no, this is morally wrong. So I just got rid of it. Okay. I got rid of it because I figured out that was wrong. And I've worked subsequently in California to make sure we got rid of private prisons, not only in terms of incarceration, but in terms of detention. So when I make a mistake, then I deal with it. And I made those decisions. I didn't do it a week before I started running for president. I was at the very front 15 years ago figuring out, okay, I know this isn't right, and I acted.
Tom, to clarify that point, though, because it sounded a little odd, the for-profit prisons, you got out of it because originally you thought they were going to be more effective to help rehabilitate people or to turn a profit quicker?
To rehabilitate people. Look, Ram has asked me a question of, did you try and do the right thing when you were an investor? And I did. And a couple of times I realized something was wrong, so I divested it and moved on, and I've worked in both those cases very effectively to make sure that the values that I came to were right, and I came to them fast, and I came to ahead of everybody else.
Governor?
Tom, first off, thank you for taking questions from us. You and Senator Klobuchar did. Senator Warren and Mayor Buttigieg did not.
But I don't know if we offered that to them. I don't know if we offered the Thunderdome to them, to be honest.
Mayor, but anyway,
when would I ever turn down the chance to talk to someone from Jersey?
That's exactly right.
I'd have to be nuts.
You would absolutely have to be, and I'm glad you're not.
You know that.
Well, that's right, but he would be nuts to not interact with someone like us.
Come on.
You're talking tonight, I think, based on both the questions you got on issues of race and opportunity. And I thought you spoke rather eloquently a couple times tonight about creating opportunity. So on that score, where do you sit on school choice and on giving kids in urban areas who are in some failing government schools and their families an opportunity to have broader choice that maybe my family and your family have had if they wanted to avail ourselves of it?
So, Chris, I don't know if you know this, but my mom taught in the New York public schools.
Didn't know.
Yeah. And then after she retired, she went and taught prisoners at the Brooklyn House of Detention. My brother, actually, who Ram knows, graduated from high school early to go and to help my mom in the public schools before he went to college. He's been a child advocate for at-risk children as a career, and he's older than I am. So let me say this. I am completely committed to the idea of education of kids, not just being the future prosperity of America, which it is, but also the engine for mobility and justice in this country. Number one statistic for success in the United States of America, third grade reading comprehension. I take this seriously at a level that I didn't get a chance to say tonight. And let me say, there's a huge racial component to this. And I am willing to change completely the amount of money we spend on this. That's why I brought up $700 billion for defense, right. $70 billion for education. Are you kidding me?
And that's why.
And I'm going to answer your question. Yep. But I believe the way that we repair this is through the public school system. I have seen these charter schools. I don't believe they address the basic problems. I'm not someone who hates unions. I love teachers. I believe teachers run the schools. I want to back them. I want to support them, not just with higher pay. I want to support them with support services like crazy things like nurses and librarians. I don't think we can overemphasize as a country our commitment to 3-year-old kids across the spectrum, to subsidize childcare for moms. To me, the fact that we spend $700 billion on defense, trillions of dollars on wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and $70 billion on the kids of America, that just has to be wrong. And, to me, the real question is, how do we get the bulk of these schools to work? How do we work with the teachers to make it happen? How do we make sure that those schools serve the kids? Because if third grade reading comprehension is the number, you can't start in third grade. My brother's been telling me, Rom knows him, he's got a big mouth.
I mean, the truth is, kids drop out of college in third grade.
Yes, before. And my point is, my brother's been yelling at me, and he's got a big mouth.
That I can confirm.
Isn't it true? Yeah. That if you don't get the kids by 3, you're probably too late, and if you don't get them by 5, you are too late.
All right.
And I'm committed. I know you're committed to this.
Tom Steyer, thank you so much. I'm sorry we're coming off the air right now. If you're watching ABC News Live, a rebroadcast of the debate, thanks so much for watching the best team in politics.
Thanks, Tom.